webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name's Zoe, I'm your host from the Service Desk Institute today. Thank you so much for joining us. Over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be talking all about the importance of becoming truly customer-led in your service and your support operations, what this means, how you do that, but also why and what the real benefits are for you and your team and your organisation. So I'm really pleased to say that joining us today is Pasi Nikkanen, who's Chief Product Officer at HappySignals, and they're a great fit for this topic as their whole mission is to improve employee happiness and productivity. So obviously, a huge part of what we do in IT service and support is around that same area. So please make the most of Pasi's experience today. He's going to be guest presenting, so please do post your questions for him during the webinar. We'll come to those at the end. We'll get through as many of those as we can. So let's say hello to Pasi now. Hi, are you there?
Hey, hi Zoe, thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us. And you're going to present some slides in a moment, I know, starting, I think, with a bit of an introduction. So I will leave all of that to you. And also, I believe you're going to have an announcement for us at the end. Is that right?
Yeah. So hopefully everybody listening, you can still stay on until the end. So we have a little announcement together with SDI.
Exactly. So keep listening, people, and we'll fill you in on all of that at the end. So I will hand straight over to you, Pasi, and come back in at the end with any questions for you. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So like Zoe mentioned, the agenda for today, first a little bit of an intro, then I'll try to break it down into three different sections. First, a little bit what is employee experience or customer experience in ITSM, how to actually measure it and do it, and then how to actually use it. So I think that's really the most important part. So first, like these practicalities, what is it, how to do it, but then actually when you're doing it, like how to use and how to make the most out of the data. What we call is the experience data. And like Zoe mentioned, please write in your questions to the webinar software. We'll go through those in the end, so we have enough time for all the questions that will come up. Like Zoe mentioned my name, so you can probably recognize from the last name that I'm from Finland, so located in Helsinki. I've been working on this quite a long time, and really my passion is to now bring this employee experience as a really strategic thing into service management. So I used to run internal services for 15,000 employees in a large IT enterprise. So it is a kind of topic close to my heart. But where we started as HappySignals and kind of the whole idea and our passion is that we were interviewing around 25 CIOs in the Nordics, and we were asking, so what kind of problems do you kind of face? And one of the problems was, of course, that they get really low response rate on their surveys. So they don't really use the data because it starts to be like individual feedbacks. Then they said that, well, it was built by somebody in-house and we don't really use the data or that it's actually kind of something that your outsourced vendor does. It's only for the contract. We just monitor that we don't get any violations in the contract. And out of this, we kind of started to realize that okay, it seems like there's this watermelon effect. So the KPIs are set so that everybody can meet them. It's always on the green, but still, when you go to the corridors, you go to the coffee room, you hear the employees complaining about IT services. So what's up with this? So that's kind of where we started. And also one of the things for Service Desk, we passionately, together with Sami Kallio, our CEO, I feel that it's really hard work working at Service Desk. You're facing with people with problems all day long, and then when you're only shown the escalations, the negative cases, that is not really the most motivating thing around. So we have some answers to that, and why is it really important, also based on research. I found an old meaning 1 year old, a report we did together with SDI last year. And in that report, 65% of the respondents said that they see more value in this customer experience than in the traditional ones. So kind of what we already found out earlier. And there's also the URL for the old report, so you can actually go and download it there as well if you feel like it. And the interesting thing was that when we then asked it, then what do you actually measure? So 75% said that yeah, we do have SLAs, but then 72% said that they don't include this experience thing. So there's a real like what people feel that they should be doing, but what they actually are doing. I hope that this has now increased a little bit during the year, but yeah, maybe not like hugely. And like one of our customers saying that this kind of leads you to this, you get what you measure thing. So if you measure these SLAs, you will of course get these great SLA scores, but it doesn't really mean that you get happy users. And yeah, this is really like, again, I put the watermelon there. So you get what you measure type of thing is I think the key message. But what is actually then employee experience? And what does it really mean in the context of ITSM? Because there's so many words for everything. I wanted to kind of give our definition of what we are talking about here. And to start, again, last year I think was a kind of breakthrough for the whole industry on this topic. Forbes was already writing a year ago that last year will be the year of employee experience. And what Dennis was saying is that when you're driving to get that external customer satisfaction up, kind of the last place where you can make like significant kind of changes to that one is the employee experience side. So that's why he was saying that is why last year started to be this employee experience year. But I think the most important coverage of this was that what it is not. So employee experience, also from our point of view, is not new and improved HR. It is not these perks and parties, so getting like the latest iPhone and having the nice Christmas party and so on. It is not about this employee branding and this kind of employee engagement thing. It is really much more about the services that you use at the office, how easy it is to actually do your work. And I think Forrester joined the party end of last year saying that if you're not now prioritizing this employee experience improvement, you're doing it wrong. I also created the link for you there, and I'm sure we'll distribute the material later, so you will have a chance to go and read those articles. But I think one of the best examples of the equation I've seen is from Jacob Morgan, from this also now quite old book called Employee Experience Advantage. And I think in that he touches well these three different pillars of the equation. And I think if we go to traditional world, we know that the culture part, so the HR part, that is of course something that the HR talks about, and it's this employee engagement thing. And sometimes I've even heard that the HR saying to IT that, hey, you don't have to care about this employee experience thing because it's our job, but we don't really feel like that. And also the physical space, so the facilities. We all know the term Google offices. So having the nice colors on the walls and having a rocking chair and a nice lounge sofa there, yeah, it's part of it, of course. But I think really what comes into the middle is this technology. And I think with technology, we actually mean services. So how you run these digital services inside the company. And of course, behind the IT, we have the ITSM and the service desk as well. So I think as a takeaway from this picture is that if you talk with the other departments in the enterprise, and I guess this is what you call enterprise service management, maybe this is like a good approach, showing this that actually together you are all creating this experience for the employees. Then how do you manage it? I think the good old infinity circle here is a good example. So of course, first the employees, they need to experience the services. Then they need to be able to respond and tell you how good they were and what were the issues. Then you need to analyze and design and kind of do this all over again and kind of having it as a continuous loop. So this is of course what we do as a continuous service improvement in the IT world. And what we offer into this loop is then this part, that We are able to actually extract from the users, the employees, how they feel about the services. We are able to analyze it automatically for you and allow you to identify the places. So these topics I'll now cover. Next is that how do you actually get enough volume? How do you actually identify these development priorities? And then how do you actually make it transparent for everyone? Without a third party, the third bullet, you will kind of only leave this as a yet another KPI, which will get buried in a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting together with the other ones. As our name is HappySignals, of course, happiness to the services is one of the key metrics. But we feel that you cannot only measure the happiness side. The reason why we do all these digital transformation things is that we want to make the employees more productive. That's why we measure two things with our service. We measure the happiness, but we also measure the productivity side. So how much from the actual employee or the customer, as some of you talk about it, how much of their time is wasted. Because of course the real job of service desk and the automated services that we are providing is to allow the users to do their work as efficiently and as productive as possible. And these two actually can prove your business value. So using these two, you can kind of show that this is actually the value that we are bringing. These improvements that we did, these are bringing, again, this value. But I'll come back to that in an examples in the end, like how to actually use the data. But first, let's focus on actually getting the data. And one of the main, kind of really interesting topics is that people usually, and the organizations usually have really low response rates. And these are also from the SDR report last year, is that we were asking, is your response rate above 20? So every third said yes, which is actually really, really good. But from our customers, all of them have over 20%. And this means how many responses do you get divided by all the tickets that you have. Not such show that you send it to every third, but actually to all the tickets that you send it to. And kind of what happens from this really low response rate is of course the second graph. So do you actually trust the data? And yeah, only every third said that they trust it. So yeah, I think it really correlates that unless you have enough volume, you don't trust it. And if you don't trust it, then you are not able to make good decisions as an organization. But then how do you get a really high response rate? Well, these are just learnings from the consumer world, like how do you really make it actionable and easy so that it's part of the process, not some extra step. I really hate, I'm working in a survey company in a way, but I hate surveys. At some point I got a survey from a rental car company, and the first question they were asking is like, which company did I use? Well, you know, the company that I was using should know which company I was using and which car I had and where I was renting and all that stuff. So we wanted to make it so that we are actually making it actionable. So when you're sending the resolution to the employee, then you're asking them to please accept the rating, the service experience by rating the experience. So this is an actionable survey. It is not some additional step that you need to do after everything is solved. And clicking on this number, because we are using the ITSM tool, we of course get all the metadata behind it. So we know the location of the employee, we know the service that they are using, what was the assignment group solving the issue, and which channel that they actually use. So all this important information is captured during this. And after this one, we only have this like a one-click survey thing. So we have tried to find a good balance between those happy face things that you see in an airport. So when you go to an airport toilet, you know, there's this red sad face and a green happy face. You come out and you click on the red one, and the airport or the airline doesn't know why you did it. So was it because the toilet paper was out or the flight was delayed? So you really need to have factors. So you need to understand the reasoning. So that's why we have these randomized kind of factors that people can just check from the list. And these were the reasons why I gave this number. This really helps you in a way that you don't have to start reading all the textual feedback that they give as well. You can start to look at the big picture and the trends on the topics. And the additional thing that we do, because I was showing that we measure the productivity, we are also asking the employees to estimate the work time they lost. So that is kind of like a perception. And of course, it tells you how business critical that service is. If it's really critical, they will give a high value. If it's not, they will give a low value. Yeah, but with these two simple steps, and one of the main things is of course that all these surveys that are in our tool, they are predefined. So when you just deploy it, it's there. It doesn't mean that we have to do with you a survey design project first. No, we just deploy the ones we have out of the box. The second main topic is actually how do you identify? So I guess this could be the point where, you know, most of you are maybe doing that CSAT thing. So you are gathering the data. Maybe you are in the lucky ones and you get really high response rate. So you have data. But then do you only have like our CSAT is 3.7 from 1 to 5, or do you have a 93% customer satisfaction? That's a really nice thing to actually show in a communication and highlight. But how do you use that in your development? Will it allow you to understand where you don't have the high number and where you do have the high number? So because of that, we have a cloud service where the feedbacks are gathered, and in real time, it highlights you really the value. So looking at this example, it shows you the trend of the happiness. It shows you all the important things that you want to see. For example, it could be country, it could be company, service offering, service. I will show you more. There's like channels and, well, basically like everything that you gather from the ITSM tool. But we show it in a really simple and understandable view. And you can set your target. So what is the target that you are aiming at, for example, this year? And everything below the target will be red, and everything above it will be green. So of course, now if you start thinking that, because all those columns are kind of sorted based on volumes, the one where you have the most volume and it's on red is the one where you can make the most impact. So now starting to focus on the individual things that are on red, you can actually start to improve the overall number that you are targeting for. Otherwise, it might be just like a gut feeling thing. But with this one, all the stakeholders, your managers, your services team, if you have external vendors or providers, everybody can agree that, okay, these are the ones where we are lacking on the experience side. And of course, you have to be able to drill down. So clicking on something, for example, Sweden, will kind of show you which services are used on this location. How do people feel about the different services? And for example, if I want to understand more about the email and calendar, just clicking on that will identify that, okay, people seem to be quite happy with the Office 365, but when they use Google Apps, they are struggling. And then, of course, you start to understand, okay, why is that? Well, we were asking those factors earlier in the survey. So then we can show you that, hey, these are the reasons. So with the Google Apps, it seems that people had to explain their case several times, or the ticket wasn't even solved. So you start to get reasoning without actually reading any of those individual feedbacks. Of course, those feedbacks are, if you click on any of those, you can see what people have actually written. But in many cases, you know that, oh yeah, it's because of that thing. We haven't, for example, trained the people in Sweden on the Google Apps, but we didn't realize that people are using it so much. So it just, you know, gives this transparency and focus on where do we have the issue. Then, of course, you might start to identify that, hey, maybe it's a channel. So because people were saying that they have to explain themselves several times. Well, naturally, if they're using email as the main channel, email doesn't have any format. There's, it's just free text. So they just aren't telling that information that the service desk needs. Instead, if they would be, let's say, using a portal, or they could be using a chatbot, you could actually ask those questions beforehand, and in that way improve the service experience, because then the service agent would be able to respond directly without having to ask multiple questions afterwards. Then channel analysis is one of the great things, because I guess this is like a very common thing in enterprise service management in IT, but also in HR and other areas. So considering like which channel should we provide for our employees. So of course certain channels have more something in common with each other, like phone and chat, or on-site support, and then for example email and portal. But sometimes when you only have the satisfaction number, it might be quite similar. So you're wondering that, okay, so what's the point? How do I justify that we should close down the email and start using portal or chat? Because we know that that's the reason why we get that reason that I have to explain myself several times. So then we can bring in the productivity option that I showed you. So when we're asking from the employees that how much of their time is lost, we can then actually see the differences. So now if we identify that, okay, every ticket people using email, on average, they lose 3.5 hours. And in portal, they only use 2.5 hours. So that's like 1 hour saved from productivity on each ticket. And if you consider the hourly price of your employees, it's much higher than the individual ticket price that you might be paying to external party or your internal service desk. And then you see that, okay, if they would still be starting to use chat, and then we could start to actually use chatbots to ask different questions and assign the tickets to right teams and so on. Then that would save us even more productivity. So now you can actually start to justify the reasoning why you want to promote these new technologies, not just because you are techies and you love the new tech, but there's reason and measurable reason coming from the neutral party that are the end users. Another example, so let's say that we need to get focus. So we have some service that we need to understand why that is. We drill down and we see that, okay, again, it seems like I had to explain my case several times. And then we realize that, hey, it seems like the reassignment count, so the ticket gets bounced quite a lot. So every time that happens, the happiness is going down. So if we can reduce that, then we can actually increase the happiness as well. So that's really the topic on the focus and kind of being able to identify. So in real time, having these things, not just that they are monthly reports, but at any point when you are doing anything, you can go and see what is happening. So then the last one on these focus areas, so making it transparent. So I think the first thing for service desk is that you should be able to show all the positive feedback directly to the people who are working with the employees. So just connecting the customer or the employee together with the agent. And we've seen from our database that in normal ITSM services, around 75% of all the feedback is positive. And now many times this positive feedback gets left out, it's not shown. And there are studies that say that when you get a positive feedback, you are more ready and kind of more positively charged in a way to serve the next customer. So, getting the positive feedback really allows you to be more positive to the next one. But also getting the negative feedback right away allows you to learn right away. If you consider this like in the photography world, 20 years ago you had like film cameras, and it took a week to know that did I actually make this picture or not. Nowadays you just take on your iPhone and you instantly see that, okay, I need to adjust the lighting a little bit like this. So the learning is much faster nowadays with the digital tools. So the same thing just applies here with the agents. And actually, Jeff Rönnberg for MetricNet did last autumn this kind of research, and I think you should go and listen to Jeff if you are in an event where he's talking, saying that there's a direct correlation with the agent job satisfaction and the customer satisfaction. So all these things that you can do to motivate the agents more and make their work more meaningful. I think it's quite meaningful work if you say that you come here every day to actually help your colleague to do their work as efficiently as possible and being as happy as possible. Not that you come here every day to close as many tickets as possible, because that would mean that you just want to get rid of people and just close the tickets. So really, this is not like sometimes some services people are saying like, but don't the agents feel that they are being like measured and judged and all that? Well, yeah, it's totally about the communication. How do you communicate this kind of tools to the services agents? And this kind of leads to a really important topic, which is about making it transparent also to all the other stakeholders. So putting on these screens in the offices, like physical screens in the IT department, next to the coffee machine or next to the elevator when you walk in, so that you remember that, oh yeah, we have these customers, these employees that we are serving. And so how is it actually doing today? Or what is that feedback? Maybe I'll start talking with my colleague next to me that, hey, did you see this feedback? And oh yeah, I think we could actually solve that using this or this. So it just keeps the whole conversation in the organization. So really changing the culture in the organization. Since we gather so much data, we also publish this as a happiness score, so a benchmark for ITSM. Because at least when I was running internal services, it was really difficult to understand that how well are we doing? Are we above or below the benchmark? Should we put more effort, or are we putting too much effort on this? So that's why we started to create this anonymous benchmark from all the feedbacks that we gather. So we do them for the factors. So what is usually the main reason for unhappiness? How does because we have a scale from 0 to 10. So in different countries, people have a different culture of giving feedback. So we have for example, country benchmark for UK, which is totally different than the country benchmark of Finland, for example. So you need to understand what is usually the level there to understand that are we good or bad. For the different channels, so you can also use that when you are considering channels that you don't yet have. You can go to our website, look at the happiness score, and understand that, oh yeah, seems like people are more happy with this channel. So I can show it to my peers, I can show it to my manager and explain that this is why we want to try out this channel, because it seems that it's much more efficient. And we also do behavioral profiles. I'm not going to talk about them today, but it kind of tells you what kind of employees do you have? How does your employees react in a support situation? It's more important to understand the culture in the company than your industry. So we don't have an industry benchmark, but we have this kind of behavioral profile benchmark. There's a free ebook on the happiness score page if you get interested on that. And yeah, I'm happy to talk more later if you wish. But to recap, so how to do it? So get a lot of data, identify, so make it transparent, real time, and show it to everybody. I think that's kind of the summary I want to bring you, like these three things. Just get a lot of it, make it possible so that you can drill down to it, and then just publish it and tell about it to all the stakeholders. Then how to actually use it. I think this is one of the most interesting parts of the webinar, because everything is based on real data. I've removed some of the customer names because I'm showing real customer data, but yeah, I'm happy to open them more privately if you wish. What is digital transformation? How do you actually measure it? This would be really interesting to get the question or the answer from this from CIOs and organizations. What we feel is that, of course, digital transformation drives to make people more happy, but they also drive to make people more productive. And these are actually real numbers from our customer. So when they started to do this, you get what you measure mantra, they actually started to really focus with their partners on the employee happiness. What happened as a consequence was that the perceived lost work time went down as well, and it went down quite significantly. So if you looked at it, went down in a way that almost 100 pounds per ticket was saved from the employee, so from the business side, not from the process side and the services side, but really from the business side. Then this is kind of the story that you want to go tell inside the organization to your CFO and your CIO and so on. And this is what we have seen to happen multiple equations with our customers. And another really good use case example is that if you are changing the outsourced service provider. So here we had a customer that was measuring already this data for a couple of years, and then they changed their outsource provider. But because they kept the same measurement tool, the same measurement process, they were able to see what the real impact was for the happiness. And you can see that it wasn't a happy one, it was actually a quite sad one. But still, the customer said that this tool was priceless, because now with the new provider, they didn't have to go into this discussion that I feel we are doing well and I feel that you are doing bad. They could just look at the numbers and say that, okay, it went down. We are on this journey together. So what can we together do to improve this? And after a couple of months, they were actually able to get back to the old level. Another thing happened, and this was, I think the customer was a little bit more proactive with the new provider. They were telling straight from the start that, hey, we are using this tool, let's set up a war room while we do the change, so that we actually learn and constantly measure what is the happiness of our employees. And as you can see, when they did the switch, after 1 week, they were already at the same level they were. And this was really on focusing on the topic. So the employees didn't really see any change here. They were just, getting the tickets solved by another company, but they were kind of, getting the same experience that they were used to. And I was talking about this ticket bounce example, and I think this is a really interesting one when we start talking about the new technology, when we start talking about AI, machine learning, automated assignment of the ticket, and that kind of things. I already have this as a blog post on our website, so you can read that one as well. But this is from 12,000 feedbacks, and if we use here like 50 pounds as the internal price for the employees. So what happened when ticket got reassigned? So of course, first the happiness went down after each reassignment, but the productivity went up even more. So the productivity loss. So if we turn that productivity loss into actually pounds, you can start to see that it really quickly starts to add up. So it doesn't really matter if you're negotiating £1, lower ticket price from an outsourced provider. But if they're doing more of these reassignments and they are not really providing good service, or your tools are not providing good service so that there's too much hassling going on, then this really is the effect. And since this is not a math quiz today, I have everything calculated here, but let's take an example like how would I make a business case out of this? So if we would say that, okay, let's figure out what are the services that get always these two bounces. And then we get the real ticket value per volume per year. We understand that actually these two additional steps, come up with this much of pounds. And maybe we found like every third ticket, if we found that, hey, there's always this like SAP service or it's related to Office 365, then let's always put those to the right team from the beginning. We don't try to tackle with the machine learning all the volume, but only like every third of those. And then making a simple calculation, this would be the annual productivity saving that you would be providing with this service. So, this is a totally different approach to going talk with the CFO and to the business side of the organizations, why you need money into IT and why you need these new tools, why you need AI and virtual agents and that kind of things. Another example was from one customer that we were kind of going through that, people seems to be so happy, but actually on account change, why are they so happy? They were almost like everybody was giving like 9 or 10. So then we went to realize that, okay, and they are only saying that they are losing 11 minutes. So what is happening here? Well, first we were checking that, okay, which channels are people using? So when you click on that, you can see the channels. So it looked like most of this was coming to the phone. So using the telephone to actually do an account change. So, your account is locked or there's something else wrong with your account, you need to call. I don't know about you guys, but if I had my Facebook locked or whatever, I've never called anybody. I've just done it myself. But, it doesn't seem to be like a big issue because it's only 11 minutes. But then when you talk about the channel, that's like hugely expensive. So definitely you should automate this because it looks like it creates tasks. It creates things that are very easy to automate. They are really small tasks, and you could free up the service desk to other things. And when we look at what are people saying about the phone channel itself, they're saying that one of the main reasons that I'm unhappy is the speed of service. It took 15 minutes to get through. I had to wait a long time, 10 minutes, and these are real customer feedbacks. So that 11 minutes starts to make sense. It seems that like it's the whole time they are just queuing. That's what they feel like they are losing as work time. And if we just automate that, we can create a quite easy business case on why to make this as a self-service. And another thing that you, or a second thing that you would get from this is that people are also mentioning that they are really not getting the service that they are expecting. So there was, for example, even the email address was still wrong. So if there would be a self-service form, I'm pretty sure the user would even, if you have, let's say the last name is changing or something like that, they would at the same time change the email as well. All right, maybe as a last customer reference from UK, Virgin Trains, they have been now with us for a couple of years, and they have been able to do quite big increase in the happiness. So really measuring it all the time, and I think this was done in the early days already. It's 44%. But I think the more interesting thing is that they actually use now happiness score in the provider contracts. So they have partners that are actually not only penalized if they are below the target, but they are also getting bonuses or they're getting payback when they are doing good things. So when they are really being proactive, bringing new ideas, bringing these new technologies to really help the end user, then Virgin Trains is actually rewarding the partners from that work. And I think this is quite groundbreaking. I haven't really seen that many companies to actually put it in the contracts. And I think you can find Dean's presentation somewhere. They were talking in the Now Forum last year in autumn. But yeah, that's a really good story to find out how they're using their ITSM tools. And I think the main point here is that they are doing a lot of things, but the main idea is that they are measuring it all the time. So all the small things that they are doing throughout the journey gets shown and gets properly measured through this happiness and productivity. All right, but I think that's probably all the slides that I wanted to show you today. So I'm happy to go through any questions that you have around the topic.
Fantastic, Pasi. Thank you so much. There's so much in there, and lots of things for people to go back and look at as well, which is fantastic. So, just to remind everyone who's listening, we're recording this session, so you'll get an email, a follow-up email with a link to the recording, and that way you can pause it on some of Pasi's slides where he's got references and links and things like that, and that will help you to find those resources. I will as well put as many of them as I can on the page where the recording will be hosted as well, so you could find some things that way too. So questions, do post. We've got a few coming already. Do carry on posting though, and we'll get through more of those if we can. So first of all, Pasi, we've got one here asking, when's a good time, if I'm not measuring already, when is a good time to start measuring? So, in terms of, would that be before you start making changes, afterwards? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we hear this a lot from people saying that, yeah, we are really excited, but we are now in the middle of this big thing, and maybe we'll come back to, we start measuring after we've done that. So I think we should think about it totally differently, because now let's say that you do a big ITSM tool change, or you're bringing a totally new channel into use, or you will outsource your service desk, or whatever it could be. It would be really beneficial to first have the baseline to understand where you are today. Yeah. And the point of measuring is not to have the best possible number, because that, I think, is the fear, is that, hey, let's first improve and then measure, and then we get a better number. But it doesn't matter what the number is, because the employees already have their experience today. It doesn't matter if you're measuring it or not.
Yes.
You just don't know what it is. So having it from the beginning as early as possible, even if you wouldn't yet roll out the data to everybody in the organization, but you would activate the measurement side. So you would start to learn, where are we? Yeah. Then when you do these big changes, you would actually see the effect, and you would start to learn that, hey, did that actually do a measurable effect to the employee experience or the productivity side? Because many times I hear from even a big company CIO saying that, yeah, we had a really successful, transformation project. Well, then if the question is, how do you know? They said that, well, nobody complained. So
it's not quite the same.
Yeah, exactly. So really being able to show the good and the bad with the numbers. So I think that's really, really important.
Okay, and just going back to I really liked the point that you made earlier about how to use these kind of things for a business case, because actually it's not just looking at numbers like happiness, but also the cost, and being able to put numbers against lost productivity in terms of what that could be costing you, I think is going to be a really effective way of getting some tension and getting these things looked at by the right people, I think, for sure.
And there might be really also interesting things coming up that for example, one customer, they had a security issue, so they had a bot attack that started to lock their accounts, and they could actually see from the productivity numbers they went up in 2 months, so they could actually calculate, so how much did this actually cost us. Then they can
there's multiple there's many different things it can do. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here from Andy. He's asking to work out the cost of services to use the feedback better, is there a recommended formula? You did talk briefly about how to work out the numbers. Is there a standard formula that you'd recommend, or I guess it depends on what the
I think the whole cost of services is of course something that I think people might have the license cost and the running cost and that kind of thing figure out. But I think with the numbers that we, for example, provide, you can get those numbers real time from the tool, how much are people losing in productivity on this tool. And also we are providing that information back to your ITSM tool. So if you're already reporting it there, you could add that productivity thing into it. Okay. What is the right formula? Well, I think this is a new area still. I've seen different formulas, like I showed the Virgin Trains, they had a certain formula that they were using. But then I was talking with another customer, which I'll be presenting at SITS later this week.
Yeah.
that they had another formula on how to do it. But
I think it will vary, won't it, slightly for company, but from company to company, and I guess just it has to reflect, the situation that you're in your own team, in your own organisation.
Yeah, and maybe one additional thing on that, like the number you get, maybe that's I think it's more like the changes. So if you do
so however
something
you
and if
measure
there's
it,
a change,
yeah,
yes,
that's a good point as well.
yeah.
So there's a question from a different Andy, who's asking, can the tool be applied across other services like HR service desk?
Yeah, so I think this works even better with the other ones. So because IT is really the people that you are reaching are the people who have IT problems and IT requests. But when you think about HR or finance, actually those requests are directly the services that they are providing.
Yeah.
So if I'm asking like, hey, how many vacation days do I have left? It's the service that they're providing. If I'm asking like, or requesting that please change my bank account, or I need to go to a vacation or whatever, or that I have this invoice coming in from a partner, I need to get this data into the master data system. So they are like more clearly services and service requests. So I think it works really well. And with our tool, you can measure all of them with the same way, and you can have them visibly shown in all the in the same analytics tool. And I've known that people have used that information kind of across the enterprises. So for example, some like IT has first taken on chat, and then they have learned that, hey, this is really good. And then the HR have seen those numbers, and then they have seen their own numbers. So they have been able to kind of also convince, from IT's perspective, the HR people to actually take chat on, because it's really good for the employees. So.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So one more here from Nat asking, in the office environment, what's the best way to help employees to keep work time lost to a minimum? She says, we have a physical help desk and we care about the walk-up experience, but is this the right approach? So it sounds like she's kind of asking about the balance between work time, and the kind of, something like walk-up, I think people really value.
Yes. So I think maybe I would take two aspects on that. So first one, I think, is to identify those of course the channels, but then those profiles, like I was mentioning, those behavioral profiles. So certain type of people appreciate more those walk-ins and chats, and that's a profile we call prioritizer. They're usually people who are quite busy, and they want that, okay, now I have like 30 minutes, I'll go and get this thing done. They don't really like email and self-service portal, because they never know when are you going to contact them about the issue.
Yeah.
So if they start a chat, or they call, or they go to the walk-in, they know that now it's been taken care of when I just do it now. Of course, then the channel like walk-in, we know that it's one of the most productive. People feel that it's one of the most productive channels, because they go there, somebody helps them, and it's a really good experience. Usually you're talking with people and it's personal.
Yeah.
But so of course, I think it's the most expensive, at least if you are distributed into multiple locations. So in those, we have seen that a really good option then is chat, or some kind of like a face-to-face online thing. So like a virtual on-site concept, in a way that, hey, I can start this on-site support, but it's maybe a Skype connection with webcam or screen sharing and that kind of thing. So.
Yes, a similar type of experience is sort of the new way to do it almost. And I guess for people wanting to know for themselves, for their own organisation, how to keep work time lost to a minimum, well, that's why you do the measurements, and that's why you do the measuring across channels and things like that, and you work that out for yourself, because that's going to be different for everybody as well, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. So talking of the lost time, the productivity, we did talk about it briefly before, but how do you actually define that when your tool is working that out?
Yeah, that's I think if this would be a kind of a sales meeting or a demo meeting in a way that the first question will, well, how do I trust that number, or is it measured in the process? So no, it's really is the soft value. It's a perception. So how much time did the person perceive that they were losing? And that also, there's an option also to say that I didn't know where to start. So even if you would have the best industry best self-service portal, if people don't know where it is, and this usually happens when we're talking about the enterprise service management, you have one portal for HR, one for IT, one for finance, and so on. So if they don't find their way, that's also perceived as lost time. And that's an option where they can say that, hey, I didn't know where to start this whole thing.
Yeah.
But then, and also, like I mentioned, it's like if you get your account locked and you need to do something and you cannot get to your machine, then people feel that now I'm totally losing my time. If they feel like it's end of the month and I need to use the ERP and I cannot go there and do the invoicing or whatever I need to do, then that's the whole time is lost. But if it's something like, hey, there's this issue with something, whenever you have time, then they say that, okay, I maybe lost like 5 minutes.
Right, yeah, okay. So it's understanding, like I think you mentioned near the beginning, kind of doing a little bit of qualification or categorization, if you like, to understand why people are answering the way that they are answering. Exactly. So, and would you do some sort of consultation at the beginning when you're setting your categories or reasons up, so that you understand which ones are going to be more useful to your customers?
Yeah, we have like a default set that we recommend for the customers, and then we kind of take the company specific, because of course each company might have their own service catalog or classification model. So we pick the ones that actually make sense. So that you understand it from your point of view. Of course, there's like standard ones like the channels and assignment solution, those that we always bring in.
But presumably, if I'm doing that for myself, if I was a service desk manager and I was doing that for myself, would I involve my internal customers to an extent in that process at the beginning to make sure I've got it right?
No, I don't think that you need to really involve the employees in a way. So I think the way we have done the questioning, we haven't actually as engineers designed the survey. We had psychologists and humanists and that kind of people actually work with us to do that, so that we get simple surveys that are understandable by the employees, not by IT. So
so that's done from that point of view for sort of tried and tested.
We always test everything. At some point we had like almost like a sticker saying that tested with real employees. So.
Real people, okay. And actually a lot of you were saying earlier about the things that do come out of the box and are ready made, and I think that's probably going to be really useful for lots of people.
Yeah, we want that people spend the time on actually analyzing the results, using the data, and not spend because of course it's fun to design surveys and that kind of thing, but it's really not where you should put your time and effort on.
No. And there's no need. It's all working really well by the looks of it, and your customer stories are really interesting. And I will try to add a couple of those reports and links that you mentioned in at the end. So I think that's all the questions that we have time for. Of course, we've got to get this announcement in as well. So back over to you, Pasi. What's happening? It says their announcement coming after questions.
Yeah. So last week we started this cooperation with SDI. So now for all the SDI corporate level members and the participants in the SDC program, we're actually offering a free 3-month trial of HappySignals, because we have seen that when people actually see their own data with their own eyes in this new way, that's really the moment where you can show it to your manager. No, every CIO will come to the room with you and see that, okay, so what are now the employees actually telling us? So that's why we now want to offer this opportunity.
Fantastic.
It's a kind of new model that we are trying, and we want to start it out with you guys. So
yeah, brilliant. And we're really excited about this, because, like as you say, people actually seeing and being able to use and see it in action is the best way, really, to get all your questions answered and to really see what it is that it could do for you. So if you are a corporate member or you're in the SDC program, do go onto that URL there. Again, I'll include the link afterwards, and sign up and see what you could do.
Yeah, and the only limitations we have at the moment is that if you have one of those ITSM tools,
Yeah.
and if you have more than 1,000 employees, because we see that this is really good for large enterprises where you get a lot of volume. So if you only have like 100 employees, the volume is so small that
Yeah.
any drill downs won't really happen there. So
Yeah,
we
sure,
want
and
you to
that's
get like a
why.
really good experience. That is why the limitation.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that will fit in with many of our corporate members. So, yeah, that's for you. And the tools that you've mentioned there: Cherwell, BMC, ServiceNow, Fresh Service, or BMC Remedy. So they're the ones we're looking at. So if that's you, log on, fill the form out, and register, and then Pasi's assuming that they will hear from you guys as to how to get that all set up.
Yeah. So basically, how to also keep up to date. So first, if you log into that, if you're interested in the trial, please log in there and register, and then we'll contact you with SDI.
Yep.
And then also you can come and say hi to SITS for us. I'm speaking there on this week's Wednesday, and there's a Regit Beginser case that I'm opening up. And they have really interesting like how to really keep the IT employees happy, and they have made this like a strategic KPI now in the whole company.
Okay.
And then we actually with Sami, our CEO, we started also a podcast. So there's a sneak peek on that link. So I think we'll probably publish it in a week or so.
Yeah.
But you can already go and see the first episode if you feel like, and you can follow us through Twitter, and we'll announce all these things there. So.
Excellent, brilliant. Okay, so yep, take a note of those things there. As I say, you'll see it on the recording as well if you go to the end slides. And fantastic stuff. There's so much there. Thank you for sharing all of that, Pasi, and for sharing some of your customer stories as well. Brilliant stuff. And
thank you. It was really happy to be here. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And thanks to everybody listening. Thank you for posting your questions and for getting involved. You do have a contact email address on your webinar registration as well. So if there's anything you wanted to ask me or Service Desk Institute afterwards, there's an email address there, or you can just email hello@sdi-e.com. And keep a lookout for our other forthcoming webinars. So thanks again, Pasi. Thanks everybody listening, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.